Hi, everyone. No news today, so let's get straight into the charts. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting off with the S&Ps on the 4-hour chart, everything looks good. We got bullish momentum continuing. I would expect this to continue up to that 392 level that we talked about. Need to fill this gap that was left here previously, so we're going to get up to that zone, at least in my expectation, and then probably come back up, test the 144 and 55 EMAs. And then once we roll over and that 55 gets below the 144, and at that time I would expect this to roll over, and then we get that next push down on this overall down move. Looking at the 5-minute chart, not too bad on the day trading side. Decent momentum into the open. Once we saw fading momentum, a little bit of a trap here, fading momentum on the MACD, a little bit higher high here. But then once we got this pretty accelerated down move, we did get the continuation to the downside. And then on the fade here to the upside, we did get a slight rally with that as well. A little bit of choppiness in here, not extended to the upside, so this would have been tougher in here. Then we get a nice little fade into a rally, and then this is where the choppiness happened. We had slowing momentum to the downside, but the price of the stock was moving down. We got these weird injections to the downside. So if you're watching this in real time, you'd see slow moves up and then a big jerk down, slow moves up, big jerk down, weird price action in here. I definitely got chopped up a little bit on that. Similarly, on the NASDAQ, big push up, pretty consistent moves, fairly decent follow through, except again, this last 45 minutes was really unfortunate for me. I gave back a lot of my gains through the day. And then we ended up rallying into the after hours here and we look strong. On the 4 hours, same as the S&Ps, look strong. Still expecting to come back into this 280 to 283.50 zone. Moving over to the Russell, looks strong throughout the session. A little bit different here. Did rally really strongly at the beginning and then kind of fade through the day. Then popped up here after hours. Looks like that 9 EMA on the hourly chart is going to be support here. And then we're going to push up to that 144 EMA once again on the hourly. Still have this gap sitting over here. So we're expecting to get up to that 180 zone to fill that gap. We get the continuation to the downside. It's also worth noting that we did get a little bit overextended on the hourly chart already. Of course, we can stay in that zone for quite a while, especially after the big down move that we had. So not really too worried about that yet. And looking at the 4-hour chart here on the RSI, you can see we're just at the 50 line, so quite a bit more room to the upside to rally, which should give us plenty of room to fill that gap. Moving over to XOP on the 4-hour, turns out this was a fairly solid double bottom, and we did gap up really strongly on XOP. So we're moving higher. We'll see if we take out this previous high. If we do, like we've been talking about, we get back into this 145, 146 zone, then you would expect that move to fail because we're going to come into resistance here presented on 21 November. And then we do have really strong resistance up here at 148, 149. I don't think we're going to get that high. That's quite a bit of room from here, but it's certainly possible we get into that zone and then we get the continuation to the downside. Moving over to XLY, consumer discretionary. I do use this as kind of a pulse for the economy. You can see we've actually made new lows here yesterday. And we came back up to this previous low on 9 November. So the health of the economy, in my opinion, is continuing to move down here. This is kind of my thermometer for that. And you can see we did get a little bit of a bounce with the rest of the markets, nice little gap up. But the fact that this is making new lows, lower than the November lows, is certainly a bad omen for the stock market in the future, as well as the economy. You can see momentum is not even bullish here on the 4-hour chart. So most of the other charts were bullish on the 4-hour. We're still fading to the bullish side. And there's certainly potential that this turns bullish at some point, but we're not there yet, demonstrating the weakness here versus the other indexes. In terms of prices, certainly expecting this to come back up to the previous low, somewhere around 138, certainly possible. Could be a little bit more feeble coming into these lows at 135.50 or so and get a sell-off sooner. Just depends, but definitely don't expect any weakness here on XLY. Moving over to consumer staples, did get a bit of a bounce, still waiting for it to come up to this previous low at about 75.80. That would interact with the 55 EMA as well. Consumer staples also a good indicator of where we are in the economy. Consumer staples are strong and rallying. People are not interested in taking risk, and that's a good indicator that the economy is going to weaken in the future. So for consumer staples, I still expect it to hold its value. I don't think we're going to make new lows here on XLP, but I do think we're going to have weakness once we get into this $75.80, $76 range. Find a little bit of weakness, come back, reach the 144 EMA, potentially this level of support down here at 71.72. At that point, I would expect this to be a pretty good buy for coming up and retesting the previous high, if not making new highs. Moving over to stocks above their 50-day moving average, of course, we did perk up today, so that 144 EMA did act as support, so it's a little bit stronger than the August sell-off. You can see here we did come below that mark, go sideways for a few days, and then rally. In this case, we did come down, stay there for one day, and then rally. So that's interesting, a little bit more bullish momentum here, indicating we might not make new lows. I've been talking about that for a while. We might bounce in the major indices, make a double bottom, something to that effect. But otherwise, for predictions here, still expect to come up and retest the 21 EMA before we get that second sell-off. It's exactly what we did here. So we did bounce up through the 9, come up, pause between the 9 and the 21, get above the 21 just for a moment before we did get that bigger waterfall sell-off. Similarly here, I expect this counter trend rally to move back into this 21 zone, sitting at about 77.20 on this chart. Once we get back into that zone, I would expect this rally to start to weaken and fail, and then we would get the further sell-off here. And that does coincide similarly with what we saw in August here. So we had a couple days of cooling, almost got to the zero line on the MACD, got our first day of cooling, couple more days, get close to the zero line, get just above the 50 RSI here, and then once we get that continuation to the downside, come back through the 50 and get back into oversold conditions here on the RSI, and that should give us a pretty decent idea of when we're about to bottom. So far, everything is on track, just a little bit stronger here than the August dip. Moving over to the dollar on the 4-hour chart, did kind of find a little bit of strength through the session today, turned green on the last bar of the day. This could certainly continue higher here. I don't necessarily think we're going to break this trend or make new highs or anything, but that's interesting that we're finding a little bit of bullish momentum going into tomorrow, even though we expect the stock market to rally as well. That could dampen the rally a little bit. I don't expect the dollar to be really strong after the Japanese announcement that we talked about yesterday. But so far, the dollar kind of finding a whole bottom type structure, maybe a slightly higher low here. And we're right at that resistance point. Once again, we talked about it coming through a couple of times and then eventually failing. And if we do fail here pretty strongly, that would be a really good indicator for the stock market that we're going to move potentially a little bit higher than we're thinking, at least right now. So that's something I'll be watching for. If this does push through, that could dampen the rally. But if this does fail, that could accelerate the rally at least a little bit. Moving over to JNK, got a little bit of a bullish movement here. Momentum to the downside is fading, so that means there's a little bit of support for this rally. Markets overall are willing to take a little bit of risk, at least in the short term. Still expecting this gap here to fill. So waiting for this to come back up to about $91.80, $92 at least. There's also a gap up here that could be filled. No, necessarily that we're going to get that high, 92.70 to fill that gap. That would be pretty high. I mean, it certainly could happen. Kind of like a shoulder ahead and maybe a shoulder type movement here before we get that rollover. It'd be a little bit weird, kind of at a slant. Definitely some weakness here. So keep an eye on this one. Still looks bullish for tomorrow, which is good. That means you're expecting the markets to be bullish, which is what I'm expecting for tomorrow. Moving over to TLT, this is kind of interesting at this point. This sold off quite a bit pretty fast based on the news. I did expect it to come into this zone and stop pretty much right where I thought it would, but it did get there quite a bit faster than I thought. Got a little bit of bearish momentum here. Looks like we might pop up tomorrow as long as everything continues in the same direction that we have. Then the question at this point is this going to make new highs here? That's obviously the question that investors are looking at. Certainly potential after this big rally here. This is still a bull trend, still well above that 144 EMA. Did not even come in and test it. If we do get that rally here tomorrow, bottom is set pretty well above that level, indicating strength in my opinion, and we should expect this to be a healthier bull trend going forward. And at that point, I would expect to get up to this 115 level before we find any resistance if we do get through that previous high. Moving over to the VIX on the 4-hour, this sold off a lot more than I thought it was going to. Thought we might find some support, but we ended up gapping down. Did come into that first zone that we talked about, which was pretty close to the previous lows here. This does continue. You have to expect at least a double bottom. Jumping out to the daily chart just to see what that looks like. Still have this previous level for the August high sitting at 1950. Certainly expect to come into that zone if we do rally tomorrow, potentially breaking through that zone over the next few days. That means we have to wait to see what we're going to get on the VIX. This doesn't seem like we're going to get a higher low here at this point. Markets look set to rally tomorrow. And if we do break this previous low, then we're looking at some lower lows here, maybe 1850 here for the April low. And then the next low here would be 1750. That would be the lows for 31 December. basically tagging these lows to see where we're going to pause. And then I still do expect this to move up pretty significantly once the market sells off a little bit faster. Moving over to my positions, I definitely should have made significantly more money today. I gave a lot of money back to the markets. I already talked about that. Just a bad day of trading overall for me. Certainly does happen. I had a pretty good day yesterday, not a great day Monday. Still positive, so can't complain too much, but certainly should have been better. And hopefully what I learned today, I can use that information going into tomorrow to be a little bit more efficient. Otherwise, you can see here, still bullish going into tomorrow. I sold more puts on the IWM. I did roll the calls from yesterday up and out to 272s on the NASDAQ, and then I sold 2 puts here going into tomorrow, and then purchased another covered call going in tomorrow. So pretty bullish going into tomorrow. Have the 174 call here, 172 call. Already in a small losing position here on that call because we did rally a little bit after hours, so that's good news. Small profit here on the puts already as well, so expect to make about $200 here, potentially another $120 here on these shares, and then 272 break evens up at 275.23. So I don't know if we're going to get that high, but as long as these calls get executed tomorrow, I'll probably let them expire. I don't know if this is going to be a 2 or 3 day push, so I'd like to let these expire and see where we're at the end of day, whether we're going to get a third leg up or if this rally is going to be a little bit more feeble. We're going to get that sell off a little bit sooner than expected. Let me know down in the comment section what you think the market's going to do tomorrow. Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. And let me know down in the comments if you like this kind of content without the news at the beginning. Usually I try to hit the major news, but this is a little bit more direct into the charts. Let me know if you like that format. Otherwise, none of this is financial advice. It's all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading. Have a great day.